Hey guys, RC Buster's back with another video. Today we're going to be showing a complete build on how to swap a Nitro E-Revo over to a brushless. So I've already got it stripped down there, but what we started with is I went ahead and took the 3.3 Nitro motor off, the fuel tank and the receiver, and both servos, the shift servos, and the transmission, along with a couple other parts that had to come off to get to it. So what you're going to need to swap this is, of course, you're going to need your brushless motor and speed controller. You're going to need 3 M2 or M3 screws, and you're going to need this integrity kit for the brushless motor mount. So what we're going to go ahead and do here now is I'm going to get this transmission opened up, and what we're going to have to do with this transmission, since it's a one-way transmission for this Nitro motors, we're going to have to lock this thing into second gear so we can get reverse. So I'm going to show y'all how to do it in this video. And so I'm going to go ahead and get it taken apart and opened up, and we'll jump to it. Alright guys, so I got the transmission opened up here. We're going to take it apart and get to the second gear. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and pull this first gear off. It pulls right off, there's nothing holding it on. And then we're going to have to pull our primary drive out of the transmission. And this right here is your second gear. So we're going to pull this out, and usually there's a little clip here, this right here, it usually clips on to hold this in, this pin in, but we're going to have to take this pin out so we can get this centrifugal clutch freed up. So let's go ahead and get this pin out, just pull it right out, set it to the side because we'll need it later. And you pull this gear off, so we'll just set it to the side. And out comes this. Alright, so I had to take a cut there to find some tools, but let's see. So now what we're going to have to do is push this pin out right there. You guys can see that. It pulls right out. If I get a hold of it. There it is. And this should slide right off. So now, in this hole here, you need to take this hex nut out, and out will come a spring and a ball. You want to get both of them out. We'll show you how to get it out. Yeah, so unscrew the set screw, out comes the spring and the ball right there together. What that'll do is it should free up this weight to where it'll open up. What you're going to want to do now is get these open. Once you get it opened up, I'll close it back up. Once you get it opened up there, you're going to want to squeeze it with a pair of pliers to try to get it to hold itself open. So just give it a real tight squeeze. Didn't quite work for me. I'm going to get this squeezed in to where it stays out, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I got it crushed now. I ended up using a small pair of vice grips to get it smashed out, but this pin doesn't want to go back in now. So what I want to do is make sure that it hits on the pin there. So now what we're going to need to do is mark 3 holes to drill on this. And we have to make sure when we drill them that we clear, let's see where to go, this bearing right here that fell out. I gotta make sure I don't hit that bearing when I drill for my bolts. So I'm gonna drill as close to the edges as I can. I'm using a 3mm drill bit, and then we'll put some M3 screws in there that'll go all the way through this back side of the plastic here to lock this solid. And when you drill them, make sure that this pin is all the way up against. That way it always drives. But I'm going to get them drilled, and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like and how I ended up doing it. Alright guys, so we're back and we got the second gear locked up. All 3 bolts are in it. Hopefully it'll be strong enough. We're going to find out when we test it. I went ahead off camera and threw some grease in here on these 2 metal gears. I'm not going to grease the plastic ones up, but the metal ones I went ahead and greased up. So let's throw this thing back together here real quick. Put that back in. And we got to get our drive gear back in. And see, now it spins both directions. It's not one way anymore. But in this little piece there, there's this washer that goes around this shaft. Be sure you get it out, because we're not putting this first gear back on there. We're throwing it out. We don't need it now that we have this thing locked up solid. And as you can see, it spins pretty close to true. Once we get the case on there, it'll help straighten it up. So now we can go ahead and pop this case back on. Let's see, just like this. There we go. And there it is. Now we'll just throw our screws back in it, and it's ready to go. We put back on the truck. So I'll get this buttoned up, and then we'll get the truck out here and get this mounted on and start mounting our motor up. Alright guys, transmission's mounted back up and the drive shafts are hooked up. You can see it'll drive both directions. So it should be able to handle the brushless motor now. I put the slip clutch back on it. I'll prop you up here, and we're getting ready to put this motor mount on. Open up the screws. This integrity mount, it comes with all the screws and all the hardware you need to mount your motor and stuff up. So I went for the orange anodized color. I'm gonna end up 3D printing my own receiver box and battery tray to put on it, and I'm gonna put them in orange as well. We're gonna start this mount, will go just like this, and it'll allow it to pivot along this groove there to be able to have motor mount adjustment. So I'm gonna get this motor mount all thrown on, and we'll cover over it after I get done. Alright, there we go guys, I got the motor mounted. Unfortunately, the pinion gear that comes with this Infinity kit does not fit the standard shaft for 3650 motor. It's just too big. So I'm gonna have to either find an adapter for that shaft or find a different gear. So I got 2 servos coming to replace the stock Traxxas ones. And I have to still 3D print my receiver box and my battery tray, and then find somewhere to put my ESC. But that's how everything goes so far. Once more parts get here, I'll get back on it and show y'all the rest of what we're doing to it. Alright guys, we had some more parts come in the mail today. We got 2 servos to replace the stock Traxxas ones. And we had our adapters come in so we can mount up the gears that come with our motor mount. So I'm going to show y'all how to put that adapter in and mount that gear up on the motor and set your mesh, and how to put these servos in. Alright guys, so I'm going to show y'all how to put in this adapter sleeve. I'm using the 13 tooth gear. I don't know if you can see it there or not, but I'm using the 13 tooth that the kit comes with. If I want to go bigger later to get a little more speed, I'll try it out. But so it's a pretty tight fit, but you just want to make sure both holes are lined up. And I might jaw you around a little bit, but we're going to tap this in with a little hammer and just slowly beat it in. Alright, so y'all ended up falling off the table with me hitting it, but as you can see, I got it drove in there. I drove it all the way flush until you can't even tell it's in there. And then what I went ahead and did is I took my set screw. I'll show you out here. And I went ahead and threaded it in and made sure it threads all the way through and all the way in. And it gets a little rougher at the bottom, but I made sure that it actually goes all the way through the gear and is going to lock good on the motor shaft. So now that we got that on and got that in our gear, we're going to go ahead and get it put onto our motor. Alright, so I got my gear mounted to my motor and I got it meshed up. what you're looking for when you mesh it is you want to get it just about as tight as you can while still having just a little bit of play. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but you just want a little bit. You want, and then you want to check, make sure it doesn't bind. But you want the least amount of clearance with the least amount of play, and to where it still turns pretty freely. So this is the mesh I want to run. I think it'll be alright, so I think we're going to get on to the servos now. Alright guys, so we're going to get these servos put on. I get these off of Amazon. They're the same ones I run in my crawlers. They do pretty good, and they're 25 kilogram. So we're going to pair up 2 of them on this, one on both sides like it had before. And hopefully it'll have some better steering than before, because it wasn't the best. But the stock servos have these 2 mounts on them. They're shaped out like that. And they go on both servos in the same orientation as this. And then they just sit right in. And there's holes in the frame that they set into. And they'll sit just like that. So yeah, I got 4 screws to put in it to mount it on. And I'm gonna get it mounted in. I'm gonna go ahead and get both sides mounted in. The screws will come up through the bottom into the plastic, and that's what'll hold the servo on. Alright guys, so I have both servos mounted in there. I only put 2 screws into each one, as these little Traxxas covers still go on the outside holes to block over the servos. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the splitter wire that takes the 2 to the 1 to invert the steering on one of those servos. We're gonna take it out off the original Traxxas servos and get it swapped over here, and then we're gonna get it centered up and get it all mounted to the steering there. So let's get it on. Alright guys, so I got both servos mounted on, and I went ahead and swapped the stock servo horns off of the stock Traxxas receivers or servos onto these. And I went ahead and set my trim, and I made sure it all turns together. I set my door rate so it doesn't bind up too much. So we now have stronger steering on this Revo. Alright guys, so I got all my parts 3D printed. I got my ESC tray and my battery tray and my receiver box. I made my battery tray to fit these 3S lipos, so I can run this truck on 3S. Hopefully it'll work pretty good. Off camera so far I've added a fan to the motor to help it stay cool, and I did do a little test run on it, and the 13 tooth gear is a little slow, so I changed to a 15 tooth. So hopefully it'll help give me a little bit more speed. But now let's get our electronics mounted up. Alright guys, I got all the electronics mounted on this thing now. So I ended up adding a 10 amp BEC from Castle to give more power to these servos. Since I'm running the 4.8 volts this ESC puts out just wasn't enough, so I got this to help these boost their speed. It helped out quite a bit. And I also have the fan on there wired up. But all my electronics are installed. So now we're going to get our body painted up, and then we'll have a video of testing this thing out and seeing if we need to make any adjustments or changes. Have that soon. Alright guys, so we're out here for the first test run of this thing today. I got a different body on it to what I'm going to be actually using. This is the one that I had with the nitro motor. You can see we have all our electronics in there. we're gonna give it a first run today and see about how fast it goes and any problems we might run into. It's gonna be our first test run of this truck. We're gonna see how it does, and we're gonna run it up and down the driveway here. Seems to be pretty quick. I ended up gearing it up to a 15 tooth instead of a 13 had to give it a little bit more. I think it runs pretty good now. I'll run it off in the grass one too, see how it does. Yeah, it's pretty quick now. I think that gear really helped it. I'm running this on 3S LiPo, so I'm sure if you run a bigger battery, you get this thing going quite a bit faster. But with the motor mount kit I ordered, the 15 tooth is the biggest gear I'm gonna be able to fit onto this truck. But it seems to run pretty good. I noticed that adding that BEC, the steering is a whole lot better than what it was before. And it's got a lot of torque to it. It's got a lot of low end power. If I just floor it, it'll just wheel itself right over. I think all in all, it'll perform pretty well. Now we just gotta finish getting the body painted up. And then we'll be able to have this truck ready to go. Hopefully I'm gonna find a way to hook up a speedometer to it. Hook up a GPS and we'll be able to see how fast I can get it. I'm gonna work on that off camera on that time. If I get it to work, I'll put in a video or a little picture of how fast it runs. So I got the truck finished up. I ended up putting this Proline body on it. It's supposed to be a Chevy 2500. I thought it looked pretty cool. So I'm going to go over everything that I put on this truck and everything that I did to make it work on brushless instead of nitro. Just as a final overview of everything that I did. So let's get this body off here. So we started off by completely stripping the truck down to nothing. Took everything off of it except for the shocks, and I cleaned this whole thing. And then I took the transmission apart and we locked the transmission in a second gear and got rid of the first gear completely. And then we used the Energy motor mount and mounted up a 3650 brushless motor on there. I put a fan to help keep it cool. I then 3D printed my own battery tray, receiver box, and ESC mount. In which, if y'all need those and want to follow my build, I can find a way to get the files to you so you can print them yourself. I also installed a BEC because we installed two 25 kilogram servos to help boost the steering on it because the stock ones were pretty weak, and that helped out a whole lot. But overall, it's about everything that we did to the truck to completely swap it over. And if you're going to do it yourself, you need to make sure that you have a motor, an ESC, a receiver, the screws to lock the transmission, probably some drill bits, and you should be able to get it done. So I hope y'all enjoyed my build guide on this. If you did, I'd like you to subscribe. Hope you enjoyed it. And until the next one.